going on, Jerome's? So the saga of Dalton Risner has certainly been interesting for the Vikings over the last season and change, right? And Risner was basically... he might have been the first free agent in NFL history to ever be signed because fans bullied the team into doing it, right? So last year, Dalton Risner came aboard after week 2. Ole Udo tore his quad, and come on up for the Risner. 4-year starter for the Broncos came aboard, 1-year, $3 million deal. It had been weird. He'd just been out there chilling in free agency, didn't really get any other free agency bites other than a workout with the Vikings during training camp, and then eventually they signed him after week 2. Eventually went on to start 12 games at left guard after Ezra Cleveland, nailed it, was dinged up with injury and then was traded to Jacksonville. Also, he signed an extension. Props to Ezra Cleveland. But then he posted a 67.4 PFF pass blocking grade, 30 pressures, 0 sacks allowed. So overall, like analytics-wise, was okay. Eyeball test-wise, was a market improvement along the offensive line, and great teammate, fun in the media. And you're thinking, okay, we'll just run it back, but it didn't really happen. And the Vikings, they re-signed Blake Brandel to a significant contract, 3 years, $9 million, and eventually they did bring back Dalton Risner on a minimal deal. And Kevin O'Connell has talked about the guard competition as it is wide open, allegedly, because got Blake Brandel in at left guard, which was Risner's spot last year. Ed Ingram, the 2022 second-round pick, holding it down at right guard for the time being, looking to be a starter again in year 3. And then you got Risner, who's been backing up both left and right guard. And as of right now, this is the Vikings O-line. Left to right, Darrisaw, Blake Brandel, as well as Garrett Bradbury, Ed Ingram, and Brian O'Neill. Not too shabby, all right? But something interesting came up. So basically, like whenever you hear something that's a little bit outlandish, you think right away, nah. But then you think about it a little bit, and it's like, maybe. So Vikes fan page compiled this. Vikings guard Dalton Risner is not a lock to make the rooster, Darren Doogie-Wolfson mentioned to SKNFL. Risner has been primarily playing right guard, a position he's never played before. Well, in the National Football League, he bounced around all over the place for the Kansas State offensive line in college back in the day. With the twos in camp, he could be a trade candidate for a team looking for a guard by late August. So I thought about it, and it's like, maybe, maybe not. Also, I mean, the fact that Garrett Risner didn't really have any demand this offseason again, 2 offseasons in a row, I don't know, man. But so Risner had been working primarily at backup right guard to start training camp. On Monday, this is how they lined up for the first padded practice. Second team was Quisenberry, Dalton Risner, Michael Juergens, Diamond Dan Feeney, and Walter Rouse. Now, this is quite a switch up because they started camp. Rouse at left tackle, Quisenberry at right tackle, Risner at right guard. Juergens was third team center. Feeney was second team center. Henry Bird was in at left guard on the second team. So a lot of moving parts, but I like what the Vikings are doing. But overall, like the first 5 have been pretty stagnant throughout 7 practices of camp so far. Now, looking at Risner's contract, so like I said, they basically did give him a minuscule contract based on what he did last year. So instead of 1 year, $3 million prorated over 15 weeks, basically it was a pretty significant pay cut. $500,000 sign-in bonus, $600K of his $1.41 million base salary was guaranteed. Also could claw back some in per game. Try again. Per game active bonus. There we go, up to $500K. So it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot for a guy who was a significant starter and an above-average starter for you last season. But there's a couple factors here. Number one, they did wait forever to re-sign Risner, and like we said, there wasn't really a ton of buzz around the league for Risner services, right? Now, that could also cut both ways. I mean, teams may have been interested in Risner. Maybe Risner just wanted to return to the Vikings, right? Maybe he liked the situation here. But also, like we said, signed him to a minimal contract. They re-signed Blake Brandel first and also gave Brandel a much heavier duty contract. Just said duty. And also his... Risner still with the second team, 7 practices in. So as of right meow, Brandel at left guard and Ed Ingram at right guard is still holding. I hope they don't hold. 1.1 million guaranteed base. 1.1 million guaranteed. So that's $600K of his 1.41 base salary, as well as the $500,000 signing bonus paid up front. But the Vikings would save $1.22 million of cap if cut. And then you have about 500. Well, he'd have 1.1 dead, but 600K of that base is guaranteed. But that would offset if he is indeed signed elsewhere. Now the Vikings wouldn't get that 600K back this year. They would have to get it back in 2025. But yeah. But how confident are they in Ed Ingram and Blake Brandel? I mean, that's the question. Like, are they fine with Ingram and Brandel as your starters? Also, you look into how confident are they in the rest of the guard room. So if they're confident in Michael Juergens, who can play guard and center, confident in Diamond Dan Feeney, who can also play guard or center, what about Henry Bird? What about some of the younger guys as well? Would they feel fine if, knocking on wood, if something happened to one of the starters and you had to plug and play? Would they be fine, or would they be missing Risner, right? Also, is there any trade market? Now, of course, every single team is just an injury away from having a major need, so you could be waiting for that. But I think what's more likely is if Risner doesn't supplant Brandel or Ed Ingram, then I think that the Vikings could approach Risner about a pay cut or a cut at the trade deadline. Now, that is a little bit of dirty pool, but the business is the business. You see it at 53-man cutdowns every single year. Like 500K signing bonus is already burnt, but maybe the Vikings be like, okay, we're going to rescind the 600K guaranteed and basically make this thing week to week, right? They could certainly go down that route, or reduce his active per game bonus and change it to instead of active actual starts. So I don't know. Like, there's a lot of ways that they could have leverage on Risner, but I don't know. Like, we finally have depth at the guard spot, man. So why are we effing around with this, right? And I mean, I like Blake Brandel. Hopefully Ed Ingram can rise up in year 3. But I still like having Risner as a fallback plan, and you feel confident in him plugging in. Now, I like Juergens, his future. I like Feeney, but he's not on the level of Dalton Risner, even though he does have center versatility. So I think that I think it's more just like speculation at this point. I think it's something that could be plausible if Brandel and Ed Ingram continue to hold on strong and continue to do well. But, I mean, you're not saving a ton. And also, I mean, maybe you get 600K back in 2025. Frankly, I don't think that's worth giving up comfort in having a plausible backup at guard in case something happens, whether performance or bolt of lightning wise. I just don't really see it. But your thoughts are thoughts. Could Dalton Risner be a surprise cut or trade candidate? Hopefully not. Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Support the work. Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.